On that, after we listen to Martin County Sheriff William Snyder on the double stabbing in Martin County tonight.
Finally, 2 more units arrived and began trying to pull the suspect off of the victim. They had no success. They used as much force as they physically were able to, and they were still not able to get him off. Finally, another unit arrived with a canine and bit the suspect. They still couldn't get him off. And ultimately, though, using as much force as they were physically able to, they were finally able to get the suspect, the offender, off of the victim. At this time, we have the male that I just referred to is deceased, and his wife was also deceased. She was inside the garage, so the one victim was outside the garage on the driveway. The second victim, the wife, was inside. Our suspect is a white male, Austin Michael Moore. He was born in December of '92. He's currently in a hospital in Palm Beach County being treated. We'd like to also ask the media's help and the public. Our suspect, whose name I just gave you, has an associate. We're not exactly sure of the relationship. Her name is Ivy Stevens. She's described as a white female with dark brown hair, long hair. She was born in February of '90. We're very concerned for her welfare. We do not know where she is at this time, and any help the public could give us looking for Ivy Stevens would be greatly appreciated.
She has
Blonde hair? I'm sorry, I've been corrected. She has blonde hair.
What do you mean by associate?
Your question is what I mean by associate. We're still working on the relationship. It may be an ex-girlfriend. We're not exactly sure. Just as a reminder, we're very early in this investigation. And our Good Samaritan who called it in went over to intervene, was also stabbed seriously by the suspect, went back home, and he's the one who called in. He is now in surgery at a hospital in Palm Beach County. Let's do this. How about if I start over here and then we'll move on to questions.
So just to recap, Sheriff, this was a very gruesome scene. Your deputies arrived and found the suspect on one of the victims tearing off pieces of his face. Is that correct?
Yeah, your question is it a gruesome scene? Our initial deputy, and your question follow-up was, did our deputy actually see the suspect on the victim biting off pieces of his face? The answer to that is yes.
The suspect, is any relationship to the victim?
We're working on that right now. They clearly knew each other. It appears from our early onset here that they did know each other. We're still working through the relationship.
Do we know why the suspect was in this area?
No, we don't. Your question is, do we know why the suspect was in the area? The answer is we don't know.
And you may have answered this, but the suspect, does he live in this area at all?
Yeah, your question, does the suspect live in this area? The answer is we don't know exactly yet.
Any idea of motive?
Yeah, the question is, do we have an idea of the motive? We don't. I think our early theory right now is that this is some kind of domestic. We do believe that, when I say domestic, there's some kind of relationship. They know each other. I think once we find the missing female that I mentioned just a moment ago, things will start to clear up for us.
When you talk about somebody biting somebody's face, that sounds a lot like Flocka, bath salt, something like that. Any idea about that?
Yeah, your question is, when we see a case like this where someone is biting off pieces of somebody's face, could it be Flocka? The answer is it absolutely could be a Flocka case. We don't know. It will be some time before we get any kind of toxicology report. I would not be surprised, though, if we end up finding out that is the case.
Were there any kids or any dogs, any pets, any animals in the home?
The question is, were there any dogs or pets at home? The answer is no. We've searched the house just to make sure there's no additional victims. We've backed back out of the house now. We're waiting to get a search warrant signed by a judge, and we'll go back in and do an extensive forensic. You see behind me, our vans are here from the forensic unit, and they've all gotten their assignment. All of my forensic people here. It's a pretty comprehensive scene, and 2 victims. We also have a scene at the hospital with our suspect, and we have a scene at the hospital with our victim. So it's going to be an all-night sorting through this.
Does the suspect have any history with mental illness issues or a record in general?
Does the suspect have any record with mental issues or in general? I'm going to have to get back with you. We'll do another briefing. They have checked him out. I heard some talk about that. Right now, it wasn't real important for me for that information for you. We'll get that for you.
And can you go in any detail why you think you'll have more information once you talk to the female?
Well, she knows him, and they have some kind of relationship. We're trying to be very careful now not to call boyfriend, girlfriend, and things like that until we're absolutely sure. I think once we find her, we'll know a lot more.
Are you able to release the names of the victims just yet?
So the question is, can we release the name of the victims? The answer is no. We have not made next of kin notification, so we're trying to be real careful about that. We want next of kin to hear it from us and not hear, of course, on a news report.
And the Good Samaritan, can you describe the injuries? Can you describe them as life-threatening?
The question is, can I describe the injuries to our Good Samaritan, the neighbor across the street who intervened there? They are substantial trauma, and he's in surgery.
Describe them as life-threatening?
What I describe as life-threatening, I just don't know. I don't know.
And just to be clear, it was the house on that side of the street when the attack was happening. The Good Samaritan came from this side of the street?
Yeah, your question is which side of the street it occurred. You just pointed over my right shoulder. That's where the suspect was attacking the victims. And then over my left shoulder behind me, the Good Samaritan, the neighbor, saw the fight, heard the screaming, went over to intervene. He lives on that other side. Okay, we're going to do our very best. You know, it's very early. We try to get out as much information as we can early. We want the neighbors to know that there's no suspect at large. That there's one suspect in this case. He is in custody. We do have the 2 victims that are deceased, and of course the neighbor who's in surgery. And after that, as soon as we get more information, we'll let you know.
Can you confirm the victims, were they a couple like around in their 50s?
Yeah, your question is the age of our victims, and they were somewhere in their early 50s, late 40s. I'm going off of the picture. I saw their driver's license. I don't have it right in front of me, but I think we're dealing with people in their early 50s, late 40s. Okay? Okay. Thank you all very much.
Do you have a photo of this hiding person?
So again, a very, very, just a scene that has a lot going on. You have 2 people dead, one neighbor that rushed across the street, a Good Samaritan, also in the hospital with stab wounds, and that one suspect in custody. Obviously a lot of work to be done out here. It's going to be a long night for the Martin County Sheriff's Office. We'll bring you more details starting tomorrow morning on News Channel 5, starting at 4:30. Again, very gruesome scene out here. We'll bring you more details as soon as they become available. Michael Kelly, back to you.
Jason, thank you. And the sheriff mentioning that they're still trying to find one other person that might have been an associate, had some sort of a relationship of some sort with the suspect, a woman by the name of Ivy Stevens. They don't know exactly what her relationship was to the suspect, but they would like to question her also.
A double fatal stabbing murder, husband and wife, a Good Samaritan who tried to help them in the hospital undergoing surgery, a suspect in custody, and the sheriff said given the gruesomeness of the scene, he would not be surprised if drugs helped fuel part of that rage of the suspect now in custody. A lot yet to unfold. If
we have any more details before the end of the newscast, we'll bring them to you. Otherwise, we'll have a full wrap-up of this beginning tomorrow morning on Today on 5, beginning at 4:30. We'll be back in a moment.